It began with whispers that quickly turned into roars. The WNBA, already under fire for its questionable officiating, was now facing scrutiny like never before. Fans weren't just upset over missed calls. They were enraged. Caitlin Clark, the league's brightest star, had been subjected to foul after foul, with no protection in sight. Sophie Cunningham, another vocal player, was met with the same dismissive shrugs from referees. The atmosphere grew thick with suspicion. Was this incompetence, or was it something more sinister? Every ignored whistle, every look away, seemed to add another layer to the growing scandal that fans could no longer ignore. The video evidence didn't lie. Clips began circulating across social media, dissected frame by frame, showing Clark grabbed, struck, and dragged without a single whistle blown. The footage was undeniable, and fans across the country demanded answers. This wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a pattern. The outrage wasn't confined to Indiana. It spread like wildfire across fan bases, creating a sense of betrayal. How could the league allow this level of negligence? Worse still, how could officials walk off the court with such arrogance after making, or not making, calls that changed the course of games? Players weren't blind to what was happening either. On the court, their frustrations boiled over. Cunningham chased after referees who simply waved her off. Clark, visibly battered and bruised, stared at officials with disbelief. These were not the actions of professionals upholding the integrity of the game. These were signs of a system collapsing under its own corruption. Coaches shouted until their voices cracked. Analysts on broadcast stuttered in shock, unable to justify what viewers were seeing. The credibility of the WNBA was unraveling in real time, and the referees had become the perfect villains in this unraveling narrative. Fans, however, refused to be silenced. They took to platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit, compiling reels of every foul ignored, every collision shrugged off, and every smirk from referees who refused accountability. Their collective outrage turned into a digital movement. This wasn't about team rivalries anymore. It was about justice. And justice had a face: Caitlin Clark. The rookie star had become the symbol of unfair treatment, the one player whose suffering exposed a broken system. The league thought it could ride out the storm. Instead, it had unleashed a tidal wave of anger it couldn't contain. The tipping point came in one single viral moment. Clark, with the ball in her hands, prepared for a buzzer beater. A defender slammed into her, striking her arm, forcing her off balance. No whistle. Silence filled the arena. The crowd gasped, pundits froze, and fans erupted. That moment wasn't just a missed call. It was a spark that set everything ablaze. Within hours, clips were replayed millions of times online. Hashtags trended. Memes mocked the referees. And suddenly, the question shifted. Was this incompetence, or was this deliberate? For the first time, people dared to whisper the word: rigged. But what followed shocked even the most cynical fans. The referee at the center of the viral no-call vanished, quietly suspended. No announcement, no press release, not even an official acknowledgement. Just gone, removed from assignments like a character written out of a script mid-season. Fans, however, were too sharp to miss the change. They pieced together the name and spread it online before the league could respond. The silence from officials only fueled suspicion. Was this accountability, or was it a cover-up? Either way, it marked the beginning of something far bigger, something the league could no longer hide. Theories spread like wildfire. Commentators debated the sudden disappearance of the referee. Was he scapegoated to protect the league's image, or was this the first crack in a much deeper conspiracy? Fans demanded transparency, but the league provided none. Instead, it doubled down on its silence, leaving a vacuum for speculation to thrive. The absence of answers became an answer in itself. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And then came the bombshell, a leak, a transcript, an internal report that was never supposed to see the light of day. Suddenly, fans had more than theories. They had evidence. The leak revealed the unthinkable. The suspended referee allegedly confessed that league officials pressured him not to call certain fouls, particularly in high-profile games involving Caitlin Clark. Even worse, he admitted to being paid to manage the flow of play. This was no longer just about incompetence. This was manipulation, corruption. Fans who once thought the WNBA was merely careless now believed something darker was at play. The referee's words changed the conversation. What had begun as outrage over missed calls had transformed into whispers of a rigged league, orchestrated from the very top. The name at the center of it all was impossible to ignore. Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, the face of progress, the woman credited with elevating the league's profile, was now tied to directives that undermined its very integrity. For years, she had been a polished spokesperson, guiding the WNBA into new sponsorships and television deals. But behind the scenes, according to leaks, she was something else entirely. Not a protector of the league, but its puppet master. Suddenly, every ignored foul on Clark wasn't negligence, it was strategy. And fans realized they were witnessing history's darkest twist. Shockwaves rippled across the sports world. This wasn't just about the WNBA anymore. It was about the credibility of professional basketball as a whole. When a commissioner is accused of bribery and manipulation, every organization tied to that sport feels the quake. Sponsors panicked. Networks scrambled. Coaches avoided press questions, terrified of saying the wrong thing. Players whispered behind closed doors. And Cathy Engelbert? She said nothing. Her silence became her confession. The polished commissioner who once stood as the league's strongest advocate was now branded as its greatest liability, and her downfall was unfolding before millions of eyes. The silence couldn't last forever. Enter Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, known for decisive leadership, broke the stalemate. In an emergency statement, he confirmed what fans already feared. An internal investigation was underway, and Engelbert was suspended pending results. The league had never faced such a moment. A referee under oath, a commissioner suspended, a global audience demanding blood. Silver's words were like a tidal wave crashing down on the WNBA. This wasn't containment. This was exposure. And for the first time, the league wasn't in control of the narrative. It was drowning in it. Silver's announcement sent shockwaves through every corner of the sports landscape. ESPN, CNN, and every major outlet sees the story. Talk shows buzzed. Former athletes camped on air, dissecting every detail. Fans felt vindicated. Their suspicions weren't paranoia. They had been right all along. But with vindication came new questions. What else did Silver know? How deep did corruption go? And most importantly, was this just about Engelbert or was it systemic? The scandal no longer belonged to the WNBA. It had become a global sports crisis, and the fallout was only beginning. Behind the scenes, investigators uncovered more than anyone expected. Text messages, emails, internal documents, instructions that referees should let the game breathe and not make it easy for Clark. Subtle wording, but devastating in context. The evidence didn't spell out bribery in black and white, but the implication was undeniable. These weren't mistakes. They were orders. The league had allegedly engineered Clark's hardships, turning her bruises and frustrations into a manufactured storyline. And for Engelbert, it was about one thing: control. She feared Clark's dominance would overshadow the league itself, so she chose to dim her light. Clark wasn't just a player. She was a phenomenon. Her arrival shattered records, filled arenas, and catapulted the WNBA into cultural relevance. But to Engelbert, that was a double-edged sword. The commissioner reportedly worried that the league's reliance on one star was dangerous. In meetings, she questioned whether Clark's dominance overshadowed teammates and undermined the team-first narrative. Those concerns, harmless in theory, metastasized into policy. Referees were allegedly instructed to withhold calls to ensure Clark's path wasn't too smooth. What started as a marketing concern became a dangerous weapon, and Clark was the one paying the price. Yet Clark continued to rise. Despite missed calls, cheap shots, and physical punishment, she kept scoring, kept leading, kept carrying her team. Fans saw her resilience, but they also saw her pain. Every grimace, every bruise, every glance toward a referee who refused to meet her eyes told a real story. When she finally suffered a quad strain, it didn't feel like bad luck. It felt like the inevitable result of negligence, or worse, sabotage. The injury wasn't the beginning of outrage. It was a climax of months of manipulation, and fans knew it. The narrative was too clear. Behind closed doors, referees started breaking ranks. Protected by anonymity, they admitted to the culture of silence. They described how whistleblowers were punished and loyalists rewarded. One recalled being told, "Call it tight for everyone but her." Another described how internal reviews were weaponized, punishing officials who gave Clark too many free throws. The system was systematic, deliberate, and cruel. Fans didn't need evidence anymore. They had confessions. The WNBA wasn't careless. It was calculated. And the revelations painted a picture of corruption that extended far beyond one commissioner's paranoia. This was an institutional rot, decades in the making. Fans played their part as well. They compiled footage, slowed it down, and circled every ignored foul. Clips that once seemed like isolated incidents now told a unified story. The hits Clark absorbed weren't incidental. They were systematic. Viral compilations flooded timelines. Analysts revisited old games, stunned at what they had overlooked. The truth was clear. This wasn't just oversight. It was design. Every clip added fuel to the fire. And with Adam Silver's suspension of Engelbert, fans felt their work mattered. They weren't just spectators. They were whistleblowers in a scandal that threatened the top of the league. The consequences were immediate. Sponsors demanded answers. Networks requested updates. Players who had once stayed silent began to speak out. Kelsey Mitchell, one of Clark's closest teammates, delivered a quiet but powerful statement. "You've got to protect your stars. If they fall, what are we really building here?" Her words echoed across headlines, framing the scandal not as an isolated issue, but as an existential crisis. The WNBA wasn't just risking one player's career. It was risking its entire future. And with every revelation, the league's foundation crumbled further, exposing cracks that might never be repaired. Even legends joined the chorus. Charles Barkley publicly blasted the WNBA, calling it careless and corrupt. His words carried weight, magnifying the scandal beyond women's basketball. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about Clark or Engelbert. It was about the credibility of professional sports itself. Could fans trust what they were watching? Could sponsors? Could players? The questions piled up, each more damning than the last. And when Clark herself finally broke her silence, she did so with precision. "I wish to receive the same treatment as everyone else. Receiving calls when I'm fouled is part of that." Her statement was calm, measured, and professional, but beneath the composure, frustration seeped through. Clark didn't ask for special treatment. She didn't demand favoritism. She asked for fairness, for justice, for the basic respect every player deserved. And that simplicity was devastating. The most marketable star in league history had been targeted, undermined, and exploited. Now, she was publicly demanding equality. Fans didn't just hear her words. They felt them. And with her statement, the scandal solidified into something undeniable. The WNBA had failed its brightest star, and in doing so, it had failed itself. The fallout intensified as more referees stepped forward. Protected by confidentiality agreements, they revealed instructions that chilled the sports world. "Don't save her," one was told. "Let the game breathe." The words seemed innocuous to outsiders, but within the context of bruises, injuries, and missed calls, they became sinister. Clark wasn't being tested. She was being targeted. Each new confession painted a darker picture of Engelbert's leadership. The commissioner who once promised integrity now stood accused of orchestrating corruption. And the evidence wasn't just growing. It was overwhelming, undeniable, and devastating. The most damning revelation came when the suspended referee admitted he was paid for compliance. In his sworn statement, he confessed that financial incentives were tied to game control, ensuring Clark's path remained punishing. It wasn't just about silence. It was about profit. Money exchanged hands to maintain the illusion of fairness, while controlling outcomes behind the curtain. That one admission transformed conspiracy into confirmed corruption. The WNBA wasn't just negligent, it was complicit. And with every detail, the league's credibility shattered further, leaving fans to question if they had ever truly witnessed honest competition. Investigators dug deeper. Following the paper trail Engelbert tried to bury, internal memos surfaced, filled with coded language about discipline and officiating and controlling perception. To casual readers, it looked like league jargon. To investigators, it looked like manipulation. The memos weren't just policies, they were instructions. And every instruction pointed to the same conclusion. Clark's rise wasn't to be celebrated, it was to be controlled. The evidence validated what fans had long suspected. This wasn't about balance, it was about fear. Fear of one player's dominance. Fear of change. Fear of losing control to a star bigger than the league. As the scandal unfolded, Engelbert vanished from public view. No press conferences, no social media, only one carefully worded statement from her legal team. Commissioner Engelbert apologizes for any wrongdoing and anticipates a thorough and impartial examination of the evidence. But apologies meant little now. The court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. She was guilty of betrayal, of corruption, of orchestrating the downfall of her own league. And with every day she remained silent, her absence screamed louder than any denial. The face of the WNBA had become its greatest shame. Players who had once been hesitant began to speak more boldly. Veterans admitted they had long noticed disparities but lacked the courage to speak up. Coaches revealed they had filed complaints that were brushed aside. Analysts assembled reels of ignored calls, timestamps proving patterns. The digital trail grew undeniable, each piece another nail in the coffin. The scandal wasn't speculation anymore. It was documented history. And the story wasn't just about Clark. It was about a culture of silence, manipulation, and betrayal. The WNBA, built on dreams of equality and empowerment, now stood accused of its most unforgivable crime. Fans, once hopeful, now watched in despair. Their league, the one they defended through years of skepticism, had betrayed them. The WNBA wasn't supposed to be like the rest. It was supposed to be better. But the Engelbert scandal proved otherwise. With every revelation, trust evaporated, and as the dust settled, one question loomed larger than any other. Could the league ever recover? Or had the betrayal of Caitlin Clark, the silencing of referees, and the corruption at the top already sealed its fate? For the WNBA, this wasn't just a scandal. It was an existential reckoning.